So I think we'll get started. Statement of acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge this land that we meet on tonight is the traditional lands for the Kaurna people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Greater Adelaide region, and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. So, roll call. Councillor White, you wanted to do a motion to grant leave of absence, so we've got everybody here. There's no apologies. Motions to grant leave of absence. Yeah.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd just move if I could have a leave of absence from the 20th of October to the 13th of December.
Okay. Moved by Councillor White. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Solomon. So we've got the leave of absence, so moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Solomon. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. So now we move to, we don't have any leave of absence. We have got your leave of absence. 2.4 leave of absence. We've got no non-attendance, public open forum. So, Richard, I actually approved Richard for a deputation. Yeah, so deputation. Yep. So public open forum. So we won't. Is there anybody that wants to speak in public open forum? No? No? So we've got declarations of interest. Who's got a declaration of interest tonight? No one? Okay. Adjourned items nil, petitions nil, confirmation of the minutes. Confirmation of the minutes. Where are the minutes? Confirmation of the minutes. Ordinary Council meeting 27th of August 2024. Who'd like to move that way? Ethan, Councillor White. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Vallelonga. Thank you. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Business arising from the minutes. Hey? Well, no, it's not on here. It's not on here. Deputations, Richard Holt. Please come up. Richard Holt, Gawler Relay for Life Committee, annual report of the 224 Gawler Relay event. Thank you. Just turn your microphone on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, councillors, ladies and gentlemen of the public gallery. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Richard Holt and I am the Logistics Coordinator for Gawler Relay for Life. Each year we present to Council our report on the outcomes of our event, and it gives us great pleasure to advise that this year's event, which was held on the 16th and 17th of March, saw us having 19 teams who participated in our event. We had 33 survivors and 27 carers come to the afternoon tea for the survivors and carers who participated in the first lap of our Relay for Life Cancer Walk. Our teams were made up of 271 participants, and we had 21 volunteers who helped run our event. As is the norm, our teams announce what they've collected during the weekend, and on the Sunday morning we announce an amount of money that's been raised by those teams, but they have one full month after the end of the event in which to get their money in. And we're very pleased to say that at the completion of that month, at our debrief meeting, it was announced that the event had raised $69,073. Our event has been running since 2009, and for the past 16 years we've had now a total of 384 teams with 4,850 people participate in our event. And of course we're absolutely ecstatic to say that as many who were here for last year's council meeting after we announced it was March the Millions for last year's event, we're now up to a total of $1,097,097 having been raised by the Gawler Relay for Life event.
Yeah.
This goes towards helping Cancer Council with their research efforts, but more importantly, it assists those suffering with cancer, the carers and the family during their journey. We acknowledge the magnificent support of the Gawler Council as our major sponsor for the use of the Princess Park and the Youth Shack for our event and for access to the meeting rooms monthly throughout the year. And we've been able to do this for quite some time and we really do appreciate it. A special shout out, of course, goes to Angus Whitby and Leanne Canole as part of the Gawler Recreation Centre team and the people who back them, and also to the grounds maintenance team who prepare the oval for us for our event. They do a fantastic job. For those who are new to a relay, ours is the second largest relay in the state, with the Adelaide event being the only one that is larger. Next year, for 2025, our event will be held in the same location, and we currently already have 11 teams registered for the event that will be held on the weekend of the 29th and 30th of March. This event will be the first in the current 5-year round of sponsorship by Council. On behalf of our committee, we'd like to thank the town of Gawler for renewing the sponsorship of our event in April this year and committing to a further 5 years to support our event. We'd also like to thank councillors and council staff, past and present, for their continued and ongoing support of our community event. That concludes our report for 2024. We very much look forward to 2025, and I'd like to call upon our chairperson, Gail Saunders, to present to Council a thank you certificate and a certificate to the Mayor for her participation in the opening event.
Oh.
Thank you very much. Deputation.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard. So, Kat Ingram, Gawler and District Softball Association representative, Carbeethan Reserve Light Pole Location Resolution. Thank you. We can do that. We'll listen to the deputation and then we'll move forward, okay? Thank you. Thank you.
Evening.
There we go.
Thank you. My name is Kat Ingram. I am not here just as the past president of the Gawler and District Softball Association or as the director of Keystone Sporting Solutions, but as someone who has dedicated nearly 4 decades to this sport in our community. Joining me is our current president, Sarah McMillan, and representatives from the Gawler softball community. First, I'd like to thank the council for its commitment to improving the sporting facilities in Gawler. I am here to address the pressing issue regarding the construction of the new softball diamond at Carbeethan Reserve. This facility holds the potential to showcase our sport, attract new members and hold state-level events which will boost the local economy. However, our excitement has been dampened by the placement of 2 light poles inside the field of play. The field of play is represented by the green area in the diagram provided. The 2 poles have been numbered 1 and 2. Photo A shows the position of the 2 light poles in question, and photo B shows the other side of the field of play where there are no poles on the inside of the fence. Initially, the lights were to be positioned outside the enclosed fence line, However, after some electrical infrastructure was discovered, council staff made the decision to relocate the poles inside the field of play without consulting with our softball association. Had we been consulted, we would have insisted that the light poles must remain on the outside of the fence line. Council staff received correspondence from a consultant on the 23rd of February, which is in your attachments on page 283, that states, as per Softball Australia guidelines, the foul line must be a minimum of 7.63 metres from the fence line or any fixed object. This information is not correct. Softball Australia regulations were updated in 2020 and reference to or any fixed object was removed. The council has installed a backstop and side fence, and the current regulations say there must be a minimum of 7.62 metres from the foul line to the fence line. Therefore, any obstructions, such as a light pole, must not be in the field of play. We request that the council remove and relocate the 2 light poles down the third baseline to outside the current field of play, or move the entire fence to the other side of the light poles 1 and 2. However, we understand that these options may not be possible, so as a compromise, we request that they remove light pole 1 and move the lighting from this pole to the surrounding poles, shift the lower fence in front of light pole 2. After discussions with the chair of KSA, the Carbeathan Sporting Association, the removal of light pole 1 could be repurposed to enhance the lighting in the northeast corner of Carbeathan Reserve, so it will not go to waste. The concerns surrounding these poles are significant. Their current position poses a significant safety risk for our members, leading to potential injury. When I discussed this issue with Mr James Harris, State Operations Manager of Softball SA, he emphasised the most significant safety concern is that if a fielder is tracking a ball that is close to the fence or the light tower and potentially diving for the ball, meaning that an obstruction is in the field of play, is a hazard, and the most likely injuries would be head and neck. Photos C and D show a close-up of pole number 1. Even by moving the dead ball line as council staff have proposed or putting padding around the pole will not resolve this issue, nor will it meet softball field guidelines, and player safety as our number 1 priority. This goes beyond safety, it's also about equity. The other KSA sports, soccer and baseball, are actively utilising their facilities while softball has been disadvantaged. This left unresolved will harm our diamond's usage and our ability to host significant events. As Mr Harris stated, this diamond would not meet the standard to play or host events. So our opportunity to host statewide competitions like the Junior State Championships means a loss of income for GDSA and local businesses. I've spoken to representatives of the Gawler Rangers Baseball, and they noticed during their construction that their light poles were situated on the inside of the field of play. They addressed this with council, who moved the fence line so the lights remained on the outside. Given the similarities between the 2 sports, I'm puzzled why council staff deemed it acceptable to place light poles on the inside for softball when they previously recognised this was unacceptable for baseball. Would placing the light poles inside a football field be accepted? I expect not. While members of GDSA Executive and Council have met to discuss these concerns, there hasn't been a resolution to date. With our season starting on the 12th of October, the current diamond is unfit and unsafe. We respectfully request Council to move forward with one of the options we've presented to ensure the facility can be utilised for its intended purpose and to its full potential. By addressing this oversight, we can foster a safer, more enjoyable environment for everyone in the softball community. Thank you.
Thank you, Kat Ingram. Questions? Helen, Councillor Hennessy, and then Councillor Koch. There you go.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Kat, for your presentation. That's very informative. 2 questions that I have. One, I understand that in your business as a sports consultant, you do a lot of business locally. And so you're also quite well known to some council staff, so you wouldn't be hard to contact, I would imagine.
I'm born and bred in Gawler. I think my mother taught Karen, Brian's kids, and half of Gawler at the time. Everyone knew her for the Blue Combies, so yes, I'm working with some local sporting associations, with the Gawler and District Netball Association at the moment with a strategic plan. So I do a lot of work with sports governance, strategic planning, volunteer management.
Second question, I'll just get...
Thank you.
And
the second question, were you or any other members of the committee aware that there was a report in tonight's agenda? Had you been made aware of that?
Just turn it on, that's it.
The first I heard about it was when I received a SMS from one of the councillors on the weekend to alert me that there was something put forward, but no, I wasn't aware anything was getting put forward by council. I will just refer to Sarah, whether she received any correspondence.
I received something 2 nights ago. So yeah, that was Sunday. Yes, Sunday evening. I saw the report. From council staff or? No, from third man before Ben.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Councillor Koch?
Through the mayor, Kat, if you removed poll 1, will you still be able to have night games? Is enough light to play games at night?
Ideally, that position for the light pole was there for a reason, but we were hoping with the redistributing of those lights to those other poles, there still might be that possibility. But I'm not a facilities designer, so that might require further consultation.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Shanks?
So just to be clear, and thank you for your presentation. So in the league, you obviously travel around and play at competition grounds and the like. Do you see this sort of infrastructure like this anywhere else, or is this the only one where we've come across a light pole in the field of play?
This is the first that I've seen of it. Speaking to the operations manager at Softball South Australia, he said that he heard once that there was a tree that was in a cricket field that they couldn't move for some reason, so they ended up not playing cricket there at all. But no, this hasn't been, he's not aware of this happening in other locations either.
Okay, thank you. Any other, Deputy Mayor?
So, in the initial consultation period and everything, was the lighting part of that, or is it that the lighting was different when you looked at it, and then because they made the on the spot decision to adjust? Is that what happened?
When I was involved when we were developing the plans, and the light poles were on the outside, so this change had happened after. I guess my concern is that there was no consultation to a simple phone call to anybody involved with softball would have been, no, we'd rather not have the pole, and that could have saved the council a lot of money by one phone call.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? Thank you. Thank you, Kat Ingram.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so you're moving that forward? Yes, please. Yes. Thank you.
If we could move 10.5 forward so that the members of the public can stay. Thank you.
Yes. Seconded by Councillor Samble. Moved by Councillor Hennessy, seconded by Councillor Samble. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. So we'll go to 10.5. 10.5, Carbeethan Reserve, Gawler and District Softball Association Light Pole Location Resolution. You want to move the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the motion, but I'd like to change it, and I have sent an email round.
I haven't seen.
Sorry, okay, I'll read it out, but hopefully the note taker may have the wording to assist her.
I need to see it.
Okay.
I need to see it.
Okay, just a sec.
Alternate wording. Here we go. Notes the background information behind the softball diamond light pole location, works with representatives of GDSA to correct the problems associated with the softball light poles' current locations, and present a report on the progress made to the next council meeting, rather than retains. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that.
If I can speak to that, I'm really disappointed with what's happened. We, both council and the state government, invested a significant amount of money to bring Carbeetha up up to, to improve it. We launched it in February of this year, and now a few weeks before the softball season is about to start, we have this issue. I think we've made a mistake, and I think we've also not communicated well. I think rather than just say, well, here's a cost-effective outcome for council, I think we need to keep working with the Softball Association to come up with a solution. I'm not going to predicate what that might be, but I think there has to be some workaround so that the softball, like the soccer and the baseball, can hold high-level competitions. Otherwise, we face having a very inequitable situation where soccer and baseball are, leaping ahead and getting on with what their facilities are designed with, and we have softball trailing behind with basically a substandard situation. So I hope I will have support from my colleagues. Thank you.
So have we got the motion up? Notes the background information behind the softball diamond light pole location, works with representatives of... Is that your motion?
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Vallelonga. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Vallelonga seconded it. Do you wish to... discussion? Yep. Councillor Koch.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I'll support this. I went down to have a look at the ground today, partly because the attachment and the plans I couldn't understand them.
Yeah.
When I read it, I couldn't understand it. So I went down to have a look. I was very concerned to see that the pole's actually in the field of play, and it does create a serious risk.
It does.
So I think we do need to. It will be a just thing to do is to rectify it, either to move the pole, or take the pole down, or move the fence. But we need to find out what the most efficient, effective process we can do. So I'm quite happy to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Kat, for the deputation too. I guess I was just wondering through you, Mayor, whether we might be able to get some comments from staff regarding, I guess, what has led to this situation.
Wendy.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mayor. Look, having a disappointing outcome for the Softball Association is the last thing, obviously, that we wanted to achieve. We've been so delighted seeing the other sports successfully use their new facilities. The whole reason this came about was because there was a clash of services on site. So there was a construction call made, and unfortunately this is where we've ended up. I'm going to be really frank and say I don't know that continuing to find an alternative solution is actually in the best interest of trying to get a timely resolution for the Softball Association. The reality is, so we have been over the course of the last few months trying to work through all different solutions to this. I think probably the solution that is in here, which is the removal of light pole 1 in the handout you've been given, and the redistribution of those luminaries onto poles, I'll call them B and C for the sake of it, that still allows the right light to go on. That is probably the best course of action. To try and move the fence is going to cost tens of thousands of dollars more than removing that light pole, require a whole new development application, and in all honesty just take forever. I think in particular hearing that if the independent review has got an inconsistency with the latest standard, obviously that's another disappointment for me. But if that is the case, then the reality is the alternative, I guess, we're putting forward from council staff, which would be the no-cost option, actually isn't an option, and therefore really we need to move forward what the most cost-effective option is, which is to remove that light pole and take it out. Yes, that's got a cost of around the $35,000 mark, and that would get the pole out, scoured down the footing so that that's then made safe, the relocation of those luminaries, so that at least gets that done. I think the reason we've brought this to council is because it is another cost and because the budget is closed. And I know that you can turn around and say, well, look, it's, less than 1% of the, less than 0.1% of the entire budget. I get that, but because of where we are, we do need to come back and be transparent throughout throughout the Carbeethan redevelopment construction project, you know, we've had to make loads of variations through that, and we have worked in real time as best possible with everyone. This one seems to have been one that, you know, has obviously had a very disappointing outcome. So I don't think there's going to be another more cost-effective solution than removing that pole, is my honest opinion. And I think if council's willing to accept that that's the cost impost, we can make adjustments to our capital budget to facilitate that.
Yeah, we can.
And that's probably my recommendation.
We can.
So I know that changes again the officer's recommendation, but, you know, we need to be considerate of facts as they come to light. And I'm really sorry that people feel like they haven't been communicated with. I will just point out, though, that there was email correspondence from the Manager of Infrastructure back in early August that we would be taking this to council for this meeting. So that was direct to the association. So it wasn't 2 days ago that that was first made, you're made aware of that. But look, that's neither here nor there. I think it's just really, ultimately we want to have a solution to this too, because we want to see the $1.3 million we've invested in softball getting used.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Shanks, did you have your hand up?
Just a question through you, Mayor,
Yeah.
if I could, and through the mover as well. Given the advice from our Executive Manager in Infrastructure and our proxy consultant, so to speak, here in the room, I'm just trying to get my head around some wording here in regards to directing council staff to bring this up to current standard to allow play. Might be a simpler wording. You know,
Gone out.
yeah. So knows the background information, direct council staff.
So we can put directs council staff to undertake
rectification
the required works
on light poles in field of play to the level of the current guidelines, softball SA guidelines.
What's that word? What's that word? That's a typo. Incline. In the field of play, in line with the softball SA requirements.
Are we, Mayor,
Mayor,
are we able to get the technical wording from our, I'm sorry to ask the gallery, but obviously we've got a experienced, is it just the guideline
Kat,
that we
do
need
you want to come up to the microphone and
Australian field guidelines?
in softball Australian field guidelines? Okay,
Just to ensure
that's great.
we're getting the right documentation in.
That's great. Okay. Are you happy with that?
A bit, yeah.
Well, can you turn your microphone off? Thank you. There you
I
go.
am, but I do point out that we're talking still about the 2 light poles. So it's not simply the first one, which is the major problem, but there is the second part about moving the fence, the smaller fence, the less expensive to be moved fence, in front of the second light pole, and therefore we then we meet the field guidelines. So I don't want it to only be the staff to understand that it's just the one, it's 2, we've got 2 light poles that are problems.
We've lost the third point. We've lost the third point.
That's okay. I'm
Lost the
quite
third
happy with, as it is, to accept that.
Okay, you're happy with that? Okay. Councillor Lorna?
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy with what's going on with here. I just got a little bit of concern if we're moving that smaller fence to the inside of that pole, then we're obviously going to end up with a dog leg, which we're going to have the same situation. We're going to have a hard corner, which someone can potentially run into and injure themselves. Just to make sure we're aware of that. Do have a question through the chair. It's just the services on the other side of the fence. Is that where the issue lays? Why we can't bore and out there. And so services run all the way through that, under that footpath there.
I'll refer to Wendy Young.
Sorry, yeah.
Oh, can you turn your... There you go.
There it is. Through
There you
the,
go.
through the chair. Yes, that's correct.
Does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay. So the mover, with the consent of the seconder, sought and was granted leave of the motion to vary the motion. That council notes background information behind the softball diamond light pole location. Direct council staff to undertake the required works on the 2 light poles located in the field of play in line with Softball Australian Field guidelines. Are you happy with that? We need to get the majority of council members to agree to this. So, can you put your hands up? Can you put your hands up? It's varying the motion. It's varying the motion. Yeah. Well, we do need to vote on the variation. So we need to have a majority of councillors agreeing to this variation. So can people put their hands up? Okay, that's a unanimous decision. So yeah, fantastic, great. Yeah, you can speak. There you go.
Actually, Councillor Simon, did you have your hand up first? No, is that all right?
No.
Oh, cool. No worries. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, elected members.
Yeah.
Look, I think this is an appropriate move forward. You know, I really respect Wendy's response tonight. You know, it does take a bit to turn around and say, look, you know, logically, could have this been handled better? And what are the ways that we can get our softball community utilising the space that we spent $1.2 million of their ratepayers, our ratepayers' money on safely? And I think realistically, the intent of this investment in Carbeathen Reserve is so we can promote this level of play. Yes, there's a hiccup. Yes, it is. I pick up on Wendy rightfully pointing out that it's equivalent of about 1% of what we've spent on the whole thing, and we can get on into the argument about building contingencies and the like. I guess what I wanted to touch on is just I guess the he said, she said that we found ourselves in tonight, and just trying to thrive to avoid that in the future, because when we get to that level in the chamber, I think it does sometimes taint the good news story and the intent of these investments, being Carbeathen Reserve and the facility that we all know is that high class. And that might come down to a simple communication technique and the like. But in the report, when I'm seeing things like, we don't have the budget for $35,000, well, of course we don't have the budget for this mistake. I mean, we don't all go out to work to make mistakes, but unfortunately it does happen. How we deal with that is how we then get judged. And I think this is the right method, the right way forward to ensure that equitable delivery of this project, baseball, soccer and the like, and a really good lesson, if nothing else, to be learnt, because we've got a lot of sporting infrastructure money to be spent. We've got a bottleneck. We all agree on that. Honing our processes, I think, is going to be fantastic. And I think we can all agree that other than these light posts, it is a great delivery, a great project for our town. But it's merely the beginning of what we need to invest in sporting infrastructure upgrade as a whole. And I'm really glad to see that we have the appetite to listen to these end users and try to provide these solutions moving forward.
Any other discussion? Councillor Sample?
Thanks, Mayor Karen. I do believe that Kat has explained it very, very clearly to us here tonight. And I think the big emphasis on the whole thing is that it's about the start of a season. Is there any way that while staff are looking into what can be done here, that there may well be some type of coverage put over the pole? I think I did hear Kat say that that's not acceptable, but for the interim, because, you know, things don't happen very fast when council's got to do these things, and the season is about to start. So that's what's concerning me here, and I'm just wondering, you know, if any staff or whatever have got any ideas, or why there hasn't been liaison with the district, with the Association of South Australia, because softball is big.
Thank you, Councillor Samble. I'll go to Wendy Young.
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. I mean, I think there has been ongoing correspondence since this issue was first raised between council and the association to try and come up with a solution. It's just that the solutions offered haven't been accepted. I guess when the last solution council put forward, the association took that to their committee, which was rejected, and that's at the point at which, so that was in, I think, late July, so in early August we wrote back and said, look, you know, given the bail budget is closed, this is where we stand, so we'll get a report as soon as we can to council, and this meeting is the quickest we could get it. In terms of getting the works done as quickly as possible, I mean, I've just sent a text message to the project manager who will need to do it, saying, you're moving a light pole, get onto it now. You know, there's going to be an element of how the contractor can respond to that, so I will do everything I can to push it.
Thank you, Wendy. I'll ask Kat, are you comfortable with this motion? Yeah. Fantastic, thank you. Okay, so any other discussion? Councillor Hennessy, are you happy for me to put the motion? I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour of the motion, carried unanimously. Awesome. Okay, so we now move to...
You've got the chair of the this committee here. Do you want to go to sequence again and deal with the LTFP?
Oh, do we want to do the LTFP? Do we want to do the... So, let's see. 10.3, page 50. Long-term financial plan for public consultation. Who wants to move 10.3, long-term financial plan for public consultation, because we have Natalie Johnson, who's our chair of our audit committee. Yes. I need somebody to move it forward. Thank you, Isaac, and seconded by Councillor Hughes. Okay, so all those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. So Isaac moved it, David Hughes seconded it. I would just let the minute taker catch up. Yeah. 10.3 be brought forward. Yeah, carried unanimously. Okay, so long-term financial plan for public consultation. Do you want to make any comment, Natalie?
Just the comment that this has been presented to the Audit and Risk Committee. We've worked with management to make required updates that needed to be made and have been made. And then overall we've provided our comments to you, which I understand that you've all read. And how we're satisfied that this is a robust long-term financial plan. It's work in progress, you know, that as you can see, the debt levels will increase before they get better and get paid down, but it's what's required to make sure that assets are maintained adequately and future-proofed, and long-term strategic objectives of the council can be achieved.
Thank you, Natalie Johnson. I'll go to Paul Kosh and then I'll go to David Hughes.
I've got a question for the Chair.
Yes. Yes.
Natalie, I'm looking on page 55 of 86.
55.
And there's this nice little diagram, the debt and the net financial liabilities ratio going down. I just wondering that the net financial liabilities, is that going down because the rate revenue goes up? So as a percentage, it goes down. Is that the reason?
Do you want to turn your microphone on?
It's fine in the page, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh, hang on. Up the top there.
Borrowing ratio.
Could be both. Could be both. Yeah, so you've got the reductions due to the increase in operating cash flows. So you're paying down your debt, and that's why it drops off long term.
Oh, can you turn your microphone off? Yeah, there you go.
So that's assuming that we do nothing other than pay down our debt, and we don't invest in any new capital items at all. So, for example, if a grant comes up, we'll just forget about it. Is that what we're saying? Because the debt, because ultimately you want to get the debt down. That's the thing.
Okay. Natalie, there you go.
I'm not used to being over this side. I'm not in control. I don't know what to do. No, so if you go through the detail of the long-term financial plan, there's the plan for acquiring, building new assets. And some of them are already funded, and some of them require additional funding, such as grant funding, in order to complete those projects. So no, the council's not putting capital investment on hold. That will continue, but also the cash flows will pay down debt as well. But that's why the debt ceiling is going to go up before it comes back down again. But we're not, I think it's sort of, lessons learned, that we're not putting everything on hold just to pay down debt. We have to operate as a council to make sure that these assets continue their useful lives into the future, and we don't get stuck with obsolete assets that need to be replaced, which is a very costly exercise.
Okay. Any other discussion? David Hughes? Councillor Hughes, sorry.
That's right. Another question through the chair.
Yeah.
On page 52, it talks about a 3.5% savings over the first 4 years when our borrowings are going to be close to the 100%. And I think second year it's over 100%.
52?
Yeah, 52 of 86.
Oh, yeah.
How realistic or robust is that 3.5% savings target? That's. I mean, we've been picking the low-hanging fruit for many years off, and that I'd say 1-2%, but 3.5% is quite a high percentage.
Okay, Natalie.
Yeah. So the way that that's going to be achieved, and it's in the commentary and also in the detailed long-term financial plan, is because we're doing, we've done a complete review, like with the asset management plans, the amount of work that has gone into the planning and what is needed to, review programs and asset management to ensure that, that the assets, as they get, adequately maintained, then overall costs will come down as well. So, and then with a stringent savings plan as well, and great, robust financial management. That's how, I understand management is aiming for that 3.5%.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Hughes?
So I'm hearing the savings are going to come from the fact that we're actively working on managing our assets, which I think we've been tackling for the last couple of years. We've really increased that spending, which has been great. But so that's not new savings of 3.5% that we've got to find each year. Is that right?
That one there. Okay. Can you ask your question again? Because I just didn't hear it. Didn't hear it because
Yeah, certainly.
he was talking.
I
Andrew
understand.
was talking to me.
I saw that. It was basically, it's not new 3.5% saving each year. It's actually the cumulative savings from the asset management and the assets actually being managed correctly. Is that correct?
Natalie? There you go.
And it's also about service delivery levels as well. So it's reviewing the program of the council and working out, you know, where money is to be spent and when it's not to be spent. You know, what are the expectations of the community? You know, what do we actually need to do to achieve our goals and strategic plan? Because we're not able to do everything that that everyone would like to do. So therefore, it's, you know, through fiscal management. So you've got the spend, managing the spend on the assets to make sure that they're adequately maintained, but then you've also got the spend on service delivery and the needs of the council and making sure that that's rigorous, and we do that as part of the Audit and Risk Committee, and making sure that, you know, the money is spent in the areas it needs to be spent on in the most effective way possible.
Does that answer your question? Okay, thank you. Councillor Hennessy?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a comment. I'm very pleased, given the discussion that's gone on before this, that the Audit and Risk have had a chance to make comment, and I think the report can only benefit from that. I also have some deep concerns about how we're actually going to achieve this, but I accept that that's where we are up to, and that we have a unified approach to now moving beyond budget repair into a situation where the way we operate as a council is going to completely change. I think it's a good thing that we are addressing our long-standing delay on asset management. But I do notice, again on page 52, that we've actually said that there are 4 principles underpinning the financial forecasts. And that does include the range and standard of existing services offered to the community is maintained. I'm very happy for us to investigate service levels. I think that also needs to be done. But I recognise that the community really does need to be made aware that this is a significant change, and that we are committed as a group of elected members, as well as staff, to discipline when it comes to managing the budget. I guess all we can do is put this out for the 3 weeks, see what the community says to it, and recognising that, again, we've had a long period of a lot of community engagement. I appeal to the community, and we'll certainly spend quite a bit of time encouraging people to have a look at this. It's not the sexiest thing that people can comment on, but I think it's so important that I think we really need to, each one of us, go out to the members of the public that we work with and alert them to the change that this brings about. That said, I guess all we can do is launch it, receive what the community says, and then move forward. At least we have at least we've got a plan, challenging as it might be. So thank you.
Any other comments? Any other comments? Councillor Shanks? Yep.
So Helen moved?
Helen moved.
Yeah.
Helen moved. No, she hasn't moved. No one's moved it. No one's moved it. No one's moved it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to move it?
Yeah, look, I'm happy to move.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep, entering to the debate if there was no more questions. Yeah, look, I think although some of our conversations have been a bit more robust on this topic, I think that is somewhat healthy as councillors to ensure we are scrutinising, in lack of a better term, one of the most important things we do as a council, we do as an organisation. You've heard me in the past, members, talk about how I've sort of appreciated the way the budget cycles have been approached in more recent times. I think there's just been some learnings, not to say, those in the past have done it wrong. It's just more evolving to current day practices. I'm liking seeing As for the savings, I guess the conversation, and hopefully I can help answer your question, Councillor Hughes, as a member of the Audit and Risk now, the dialogue has always been around investing appropriately, being proactive in that investment, because with that proactive style of management, we steer away from the reactive management style, paralleled with the investment, the underinvestment or lack of investment as a whole in some of those time bombs that ultimately then go off. So what that's been causing is big unpredicted spends at times, and reactive spending that we are dealing with in current day. And that's why you've heard budget repair, and you've heard those sorts of terms thrown around, but I think I've also talked about it before we need to embark on a strategy that helps us trade our way out of repeating history. And this is what that strategy as an overarching strategy is doing. Now, like any business plan, like any long-term financial plan, it needs to be fluid. It needs to be able to adapt, because what is right now might be wrong to a degree next budget cycle. So the fluidness of this document is really important. But I do like Councillor Hennessy touched on, the fact we're all sort of talking the right language, the fact that we're all on the same journey, albeit we might have some differences of opinions when it comes to debt levels, overspending. We're going to go through this all again when we lead into our next budget cycle. But I think that's something to be promoted. I thank Natalie for coming in tonight, because that is a method in trying to ease that discomfort as well, as a whole, as a team. So, look, I'm happy to support the long-term financial plan, albeit I can get down to the micro level and say I don't really like what we're planning on investing in 3 or 4 years' time. But that's not this conversation. So I'm happy to support this long-term financial plan, especially for the public consultation, and I do hope we do net some interested parties to provide that feedback.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Vallelonga, thank you. Councillor Vallelonga seconded the motion. Thank you. Okay. So, Nathan, do you any other discussion? Any other discussion? Councillor White.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I just want to echo the words of some of my colleagues, and also just reiterate, I guess, the thanks to the finance staff for this work. It's obviously been a long time coming, and it has been an ongoing conversation, so to really thank them, but also thank our Audit and Risk Committee, our members, and, you know, everyone that's been involved in this process. I do want to sort of, I think I said this at the last meeting, that there's sort of lots of pieces of the puzzle that are now coming together in terms of our strategic priorities moving forward. This is another big player in that, so definitely would encourage the community to have a read and get involved in providing their feedback. But I wrote down what Natalie said, speaking in regards to, you know, we're not just raising the debt limit so we can pay off our debt. We also need to ensure that we maintain running a council and, of course, invest in our assets, which, as we know, there's another agenda item tonight that is all about our asset management plans. So, yeah, I think that is important to reiterate to the community too, that it's not that for the next 10 years we're closing for business and we're just trying to, you know, we're sort of, you know, the duck that's paddling underwater. You know, we're sort of doing that, but we are also investing in our assets, which is a key priority, and also ensuring that we grow with our community too, so that, you know, we're financially sustainable, but also we can't just stop investment and spending right now, because that's not a financially sustainable solution either. So just wanted to reiterate that too. But yeah, again, thanks goes out to the finance team in particular, and yeah, very happy to support the motion.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, I do acknowledge the work that's gone on in the financial plan, but yeah, and yeah, I can't really endorse this in principle, so I'll be voting against this. And I am concerned that we do have the SCOSA review coming up, also our sustainability, our debt, and our we do have to work on our assets, but we also have to deliver for our community as well. And if we're making 3.5% savings each year from basically, from what I can gather now, is basically services. So we'll be looking at services. I mean, we have over the years really worked very hard in looking for savings as a council, and yeah, services is really a hard one. But we also have to deliver for our community. So we actually have to deliver for a growing community, and we've got a range of issues that our community also wants. So yeah, I am concerned about our sustainability. I do agree that we have to get into an operating surplus as soon as possible. We should never have got into being in the situation that we're in now. And we need that fearless and frank long-term financial plan from our staff as well, that really paints the actual true picture and the way we're getting out of this. And that's what SCOSA is going to ask for us anyway. So I think we should actually be getting on the front foot. And we've already had a review of what SCOSA is going to be looking at for us. And I think we need to be on the front foot and be frank and fearless and get things going now, because once SCOSA gives us what they want us to do, we could be doing a lot more in repair, but also that long term, looking after what our community sort of needs as well, and starting that conversation now, which I think is probably the whole point of the SCOSA reviews, was to try and get councils actually being on the front foot and working through that without having to wait for that review. So yeah, I think the feedback is really important, but I also think our long-term financial plan should be a more fearless and frank document.
Thank you. Thank you for those comments. Isaac, Councillor Solomon.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few comments. I think, as someone who was elected almost, 2 years ago now, there's that certain excitement which, you get when you first come in about the things that you want to do and the things that you've talked to your community about, and you're excited and you have that energy. And, there's been a couple of comments that we don't want to be here and we shouldn't be where we're at the moment. And yeah, I feel that as a new councillor, I feel that a lot, because there were a lot of things when you come onto council and you want to be ambitious, but we've found that we're in a place where we can't do that at the moment. And so I think that we've started to have some of those frank conversations about what we need to do to get us back into a place that we should be in. And I think that staff have been willing to have a lot of those frank conversations. Tonight we've got an agenda which is absolutely huge, something like 900 pages or something like that. And this is all work that potentially should have been done well before tonight. But tonight is one of the most, in my view, is one of the most significant council meetings yet this year, because of the magnitude of the things that we're passing. And we are doing that at a fast pace because we have to. But this long-term financial plan, I personally believe, is our way to get to where we need to get so we can deliver on the things that our community expects from us and wants. And yes, there are going to have to be tough decisions as part of that, but we need to build a framework to start working from. In another item, we're doing that with our asset management. We're having those conversations about that side of things, because we can't draw a picture of what we need. We can't chart a pathway to what we need to do until we've established what the problems are and where they are and how we can potentially fix this. I personally believe that this long-term financial plan does start to outline some of that. It starts to outline where some of those savings can be made. And when we're taking this out to our community and we're seeking that feedback, I think it will only enhance it. And there's still a process to go along. There's still a massive process to go along with this. It's not going to be easy, but I personally think this is a good way forward. So that's why I'll be supporting it.
Thank you. Any Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, happy to support the motion. I think the asset management, we have been treading water for a long time because when you're reacting to things falling down, it's 10 times more expensive than if you dealt with it in the first place. We just if this plan had been in place 10 years ago, the savings, well, just on one particular wall, could have saved us, millions of dollars, getting the asset stuff sorted out by investing in our renewal, I think is a huge step forward, because, I think it's much more frank and fearless to say, this is the big budget we need to spend, rather than saying this is the small budget we'd like to have, plus an extra 50% contingency for all the things that go wrong because the budget wasn't actually, you're sucking in your stomach, it wasn't actually the real size of your stomach. So I think, I'm happy to support this on that basis.
Thank you. Any other discussion? No? Councillor Shanks, do you want to wrap up the debate?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. It's a shame Sharon Perkins isn't here tonight, and I'll try to paraphrase some of the things that she's said in the past. She could quite easily give you a superficial operating surplus if that's all you want to see. She could quite easily creep up your borrowings each budget cycle if you're not willing to commit to a strategy that actually is bold, is frank, is fearless. And I think that's been the dialogue that has evolved as we've gone through our budget cycles collectively. I think that's the discussions we're having at audit and risk level. I think that's the discussions we're having in our information briefings. I think the messaging has been quite consistent personally in what we need to do, because you're not in the best situation. The way of the past was, no, we're all good. Each budget cycle, maybe we do this, maybe we do that. Maybe we make a financial ratio look like this because we can do this, this and this. Maybe we've got some grants coming and it's in a different cell. Again, this is not a crack at the old operations. It's a new way of trying to manage. The long-term financial plan is not set in stone should this go out to public consultation tonight. This is a long-term financial strand. This is a long-term financial plan that is setting up the new way we want to do business. And it will need to evolve because we will have opportunities that will come through. But proactively, we will be ready because our long-term financial plan is more realistic. It does start identifying the key projects that we now need to rebuild because we didn't focus on the renewal of some of these items. We're not shying away from that. We're not scared of that. We're being honest. And unless we map it, whether or not it's going to be in 2027 or 2037, if we do not put it on the page, if we do not put it on the to-do list, I don't think that is being honest. I don't think that is being transparent. And unfortunately, we've had all these ideas in the past and they have been more or less motherhood statements with no strategy on how we're actually going to finance a lot of these big spends. We need to map it out. And I said in the opening statements, the opening remarks, that there might be some projects that I'm not really that happy with being where they are. There might be some that I am. But again, on that micro level, this isn't the debate.
The debate here is, hey, this is the way we want to tell our community we want to do business. Here's how we're going to trade our way out of it. Here's what we want ASCOSA to see us being proactive with. And when ASCOSA comes back and ultimately gives us what we're already prepared that we're going to see because we've been proactive in making sure that we're ASCOSA ready, hence the ASCOSA ready report, we're ready for what needs to happen, budget cycle after budget cycle after budget cycle. We can be agile, not reactive, proactive. So I'm hoping we can support this because this is the new way we want to do business, I think, as a collective. So, yeah, let's put it out for community consultation and let's meet again for the next budget cycle and the next budget cycle and agree that we're going to keep being robust because we're really, really invested in where our money goes. The people who we represent, money goes.
Thank you. The debate is now closed. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? All those against? It is carried. Thank you. Division. Isaac Solomon has called a division. All those in favour, please stand. Councillor Lorna, Councillor White, Councillor Davies, Councillor Valalonga, Councillor Shanks, Councillor Solomon, Councillor Hennessy and Councillor Samble, please stay standing. All those against are Councillor Koch and Councillor Hughes. Thank you. You may take your seats. Okay, so do we put the people that voted for the motion? Okay, thank you. Thank you, minute taker. Thank you, 8-2. So let's move on. Now, I've had a request from our acting CEO that makes sense for item 10.2 to be next, asset management plans, then we stick to agenda schedule. Just my thoughts. Okay. Just my thoughts. Just my thoughts. Okay. Who would like to move the asset management? Councillor Valalonga, thank you. Moved 10.2 to be moved forward. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Solomon. Councillor Solomon. That item 10.2 be brought forward. Okay, 10.2, strategic, so we're on page 35 of 86. All those in favour? Carried unanimously, thank you. Okay. 10.2, strategic asset management, and so we've put the motion up. Notes. Okay, will be considered by the IES committee at the 8th of October 2024 meeting for the committee. Can you read that out, please? Can you read that out, please? Thank you. Oh, sorry.
All right, thank you. Through the chair. And by way of background, and Wendy will probably cover this, the Strategic Asset Management Plan is a work in progress. So that will be provided at IES. So we'll be talking about the asset management plans rather than strategic asset management plans. All right, so reading the recommendation that Council 1 notes the draft Strategic Asset Management Plan, SAMP, 2024 will be considered by the Infrastructure and Environmental Services Committee at the 8th of October 2024 meeting for the committee to make a recommendation to Council regarding endorsement of the draft plan to proceed to community engagement. 2, endorses in principle the draft asset management plans, or AMPs, for transport attachment 2, stormwater attachment 3, open space attachment 4 and buildings attachment 5 for the purpose of seeking community feedback. 3, authorises the Acting Chief Executive Officer to make editorial changes to the draft AMPs prior to them being released for community engagement. And 4, notes that a further report on the draft AMPs will be presented for its consideration following the conclusion of the engagement period.
Okay. Everybody understand what we're voting on? Okay. I'd like a mover and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Vallelonga. And Deputy Mayor seconded it. Councillor Cody Davies. Deputy Mayor C. Davies. Okay. Any discussion?
Yeah, I guess just to explain the difference between the motion that's on the agenda and this version. There's a difference in point 1. We're unable to endorse the draft strategic asset management plan right at this moment, so it's going to be pushed to the next committee meeting. But other than that, I believe it's the same motion, so happy to support it.
So Councillor Vallelonga has moved it. Deputy Mayor Cody Davies has seconded it. Councillor Shanks?
Mayor, I had a question, if I could, through you.
Yes.
If we could de-jargon it from local government speak here, and just try to really dumb it down. You know, I'm hearing strategic asset management plan, and it'd be really cool just to simplify the relationship between the two. You know, the asset management plan being the how, the strategic management being the when. You know, blah blah blah. If we could just dumb that down.
Dumb it down. So we could dumb it down. So how do we dumb it down?
Well, through the chair. Look, I will admit that I got told that my report was very boring today. So, and that's one of the struggles that we find ourselves in this asset management space, because how do you make managing more than $500 million worth of assets upon which our entire community rely for their everyday activities, how do you make it not boring? The Strategic Asset Management Plan, one of the roles of that document is to try and achieve that. It is to try and bridge basically the goals in the community plan, then the objectives in the long-term financial plan, and then the information that's withheld in the various asset management plans. Now, I have got to admit, one of the reasons you haven't got that attachment yet is because it is actually an incredibly difficult task to create that strategic asset management plan, to try and make it so that it does provide, I'm not going to call it the dumbed down version, but that strategic link that people may actually be interested in to get them to start to buy into feeding back on the other documents. I got it to a point of like 75%, and I just was not happy with it, and that is a document I'm not prepared to put out when I'm not satisfied with it. I don't think that's doing a service to you as council, and I don't think it does a service to the community. So I do appreciate the extra time for me to try and get that right. So the Strategic Asset Management Plan says, you know, here's our big goals as a council, here's all the money we've got in the long-term financial plan, and here's how we're going to manage that money that's budgeted to try and get the different outcomes, i.e. service levels, that we want to get from our assets. That is it in a nutshell. It's a bit more of a happy, glossy document, if given the AMPs are just very boring engineering financial documents. The reality is, and I've said this before to you all, that our asset management arena is evolving, and we are on a journey with that. And I think as I've been doing the strategic asset management plan, I have found, just a few additional gaps that we as council need to work on. So one of the key elements of the strategic asset management plan is actually the improvement plan, and noting what we need to keep working on so that we, as we move forward, continue to improve that whole asset management space. So that is important. I think that's being in that document, which hopefully the community will look at. They can see our commitment to it. I think also fundamentally the strategic asset management plan provides that. I think the way I referred to it in the agenda report is, it is the council's refreshed approach to committing to the focus on asset renewal, and that by doing that and adequately resourcing that, we're not kicking the can down the road. And we're not saying that historical philosophies on doing it was necessarily wrong. It's just that we're saying that, in our view, is the most important thing for us to do, because, as the Deputy Mayor said just before, if you fail to do it, the cost of replacing failed assets is at least double, if not quadruple. I'm not sure about 10 times, but certainly somewhere in that 200, maybe to 500% more than what it would have been to renew it appropriately. So, I guess making that commitment, publicly facing that that's where we're at for the next 10 years. Is that helpful?
You haven't dumbed it down.
Oh, haven't I?
No, you haven't.
What else how can I try working on dumbing it down then in the document?
Dumbing it down. Wow.
Basically, we need to fix things. We need to make sure that things that we use every day are maintained in a state that we can use them every day. Yeah. Because if we don't, and they fall apart, when you have to go and replace it, it's going to cost 200 to 500% more than it would have cost us to keep them going. That is it in its nutshell. How's that?
So,
is that better?
I don't think we can dumb it down, Nathan. I don't think we can dumb it down. Strategic Asset Management Plan SAMP 224 will be considered IES committee at the 8th of October 2024 meeting for the committee to make a recommendation to council regarding endorsement of the draft plan to proceed to community engagement. I think that's probably dumbed down enough. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Look, I think that summary was sharpening it up, was dumbing it down, whatever we want to use the terminology.
Yeah.
I think it's important to just explain these things because, again, it ties in perfectly. I understand why the acting CEO wanted to move this item because it does tie into the conversations we're having around the long-term financial plan. Mm-hmm. It is easy in local government world to hear plans, asset management, strategic documents, frameworks, et cetera, and not understand, really get into the why we do things. And that's why it is important to, I guess, communicate that in these meetings to talk about the why, the how. The asset management plans, to me, are a real audit, a real stock take on the current state of play. The strategic management is, we're not just going to turn around and put 358 kilometres of road on a list and just in alphabetical order and just start knocking them off and then start again. Mm-hmm. The strategic asset management plan is how this all ties together. What are our open space developments looking like in our long-term financial plan? How does that then align with that road seal program that we know we need to do? Do we actually need to talk about bringing that road seal up and that open space back a little bit so that they all align and we can actually let the contract together? That's what we talk about when we're talking about strategic direction and strategic asset management. And are we talking about the renewal, or are we talking about making them new? We touched on it in the long-term financial plan when we talked about the millions of dollars we need to invest. And if we just take sporting infrastructure alone, pull that out as a standalone project, some of that investment we all know, we all admit we need to be doing, might have been able to be avoided if we renewed or invested small amounts over a period of time. But now we're up for that bombshell, that big ticket item across the board. And whether or not it's sporting infrastructure, you disagree with that one, then we'll talk about the footpath backlog of 30 plus years. It doesn't matter. What this piece of work is the foundation piece that leads into how we're going to manage that $500 million worth of assets, because that's our core business. Reactive, proactive, yes.
Thank you. Any other discussion, Councillor Koch?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Look, I actually read this one and the long-term financial plan together. That's why I didn't vote for the long-term financial plan, because I've got a whole series of questions from this item, about 15 questions, and I only just collated them today because I was away on the weekend. So I might send them through to Wendy, because I don't want to bore everybody with individual questions, and then maybe I can get those answers at the IES committee.
Yes,
I think that might
be lovely.
Yeah,
That'd be
I'll
lovely.
do that then.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion, Councillor Solomon?
Thank you, Mayor. This plan, I think it was mentioned in one of the briefing sessions that we did before on this and the long-term financial plan that, you know, when people think of councils, they don't always think of councils as asset managers. They think of councils as service providers and, you know, the people that spend their money and, you know, represent them in the community. But it is core business, as Councillor Shanks just said. And I think that's pretty cool in the sense that, might sound nerdy, but I think that's pretty cool in the sense that these public assets, we hold in trust for our community. And they trust us to look after those and to meet their expectations. And I think that is a cool thing, and I think that is something which perhaps when we get the small things right and we do things correctly, it does go unnoticed. But when things fall over, people do notice those things falling over. And it is proper asset management. Probably is a bit of a thankless job, but it is core business at what we're doing. And I've talked about it before as this big scary thing of not really wanting to know exactly how much we're going to have to pay for these things, but we've had the courage now to address that and to get our heads around that figure and start to move in a direction where we can get our heads around that figure and start to take real responsibility for getting those small things right, so that we can make the savings we need to make, we can invest in our long-term future and care for those assets that we hold in trust for our community properly. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other discussion? If not, Councillor Vallelonga, are you happy for me to put the motion? Thank you. The debate is now closed. I'll put that motion, if we can just move it up. Yeah, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hands. All those against? It is carried. Thank you. So now we've got 10.1. So I'd like to introduce Chris Hannaford, Senior Strategic Planner, and Richard Frimpong, Senior Traffic Engineer, who are going to provide a short 9 slides. Is that what's going to happen? PowerPoint presentation on the Gawler Growth Framework and Southern Rural Areas discussion paper. Chris and Richard's presentation will outline the community engagement results and highlight key modifications to the growth framework based on the feedback received. The community engagement resulted in over 650 direct engagements with people and agencies and 178 submissions and survey responses received. Following the presentation, Chris and Richard will be available to answer any questions that may arise from Council. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Through the Chair, Susie, could we have the presentation? It's only about 9 slides, but we'll go through that. Okay, up there you have the Southern Rural Areas discussion paper, and we combine that with the Gawler Growth Framework and the Gawler Integrated Transport Strategy, and had 3 strategic documents that work together to look at long-term growth in Gawler, and we have been doing the investigations and engaging the community. The community engagement was completed largely in July and August, and now we're ready to go to the Greater Adelaide Regional Plan, which was just released yesterday. And we have got 6 weeks to make a response to that. Most councils are running around saying, what are we going to do? But we have got a plan. So we're ready to move on that.
Yeah.
And as long as I get this working, we should be fine. Okay, we will go back. Okay, so what have we...
Go back a bit more.
Yeah.
Keep going back.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, there we are. The engagement so far has been with councillors, state government agencies. We've done community drop-in sessions. We've had 2 co-design workshops. And as the Mayor said, we have had 650 or more direct contacts. We've reached over 4,000 people through social media, particularly a video and our website, and that's been driving people to actually engage with us and get their ideas. We're keen to get people's ideas. So it's been a 7 to 8 to actually we've got up there 9 months of engagement, and the results are good. From all of those drop-in sessions and the surveys that we've put out and the submissions that we've called for, we've had 178 surveys and submissions received, and that's a very high response rate. And Richard has also done some additional engagement for the Gawler Integrated Transport Strategy, and he has just completed that. And we did a briefing of councillors last week. So here are some of the results. You might actually see in the far left-hand column the source of the engagements. We've had a lot of people, funnily enough, from Cudler and Hillier and Evanston South who have actually responded to our surveys. We've had 104 people respond, and one of the questions that we asked was, did you agree with the draft vision statement, greener growth that is right for Gawler? And we had 59% of people agree or strongly agree with that. And that's pretty good considering we hadn't workshopped that. And 24% of people disagreed. But that's life. We can, work on those things. But the bottom line there gives you some of the issues that emerged. And we got strong support for a green belt, for new residential housing, for moving the Cudler Station. 71% of people wanted to move the Cudler Station north. 77% of people wanted new sporting precinct, and 83% of people wanted more cycling and walking tracks. So what we were talking about, there was very good support from the community. And then the written submissions, we got 74 written submissions. Most were just about their block of land or their immediate area, but 28 of those 74 actually talked about supporting the Gawler Growth Framework. And if we look at the pie chart right at the bottom there, 23 people out of the 28 supported the Gawler Growth Framework, and 5 people didn't. In other words, we had 82% of people who responded to the survey were actually in support of the Gawler Growth Framework, and 7 out of the 8 agencies that responded were also in support. And the next pie chart is very interesting because it's got 59 people actually supported growth. And a lot of these were landowners in the southern rural area. But essentially we only had 2 people, or 2, some of them, one of them was a group, that did not support growth in the rural zone. So we had a strong endorsement of further residential development, and that chart there just also gives you an idea of what some of the written submissions were about. And a lot of people were supporting a green belt, a lot of people supporting housing choice, improved public transport, more employment lands for local jobs for local people, and an enhanced tree canopy overlay. So there was a lot of support for the initiatives that were proposed in the Gawler Growth Framework and in the Southern Rural Area document. We have made some changes. The idea of the consultation was that we would listen to people, and it is a little bit small there, but what has happened as a result of the consultation, particularly the area south of Anglevale Road in Evanston Gardens, there was a desire for smaller allotments, and we also thought that area was suitable for residential development. So we've gone from 3,700 dwellings to 4,800 dwellings, particularly by looking at expanding below Anglevale Road, looking at some additional land in the Brereton Triangle and looking at some land in Williston. So we were able to actually increase the housing yield throughout Gawler by looking at some additional areas brought through the engagement. So I'll now hand over to Richard, who will talk about the integrated transport strategy.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, look, I won't spend too much time on this just because SMEC went through a lot of these transport discussions on Wednesday night, but I suppose this is probably just a little bit more of a recap more than anything else. And I suppose what I wanted to do tonight was more or less just go through just some of the key recommendations. A lot of it, I suppose, is based on the modelling that was undertaken based on the land use plan that was prepared by Jensen. And I'll just go through a lot of these items very quickly. So probably some of the key takeaways in terms of walking and cycling, and it was probably mentioned a bit earlier tonight when talking about the asset management plan, is obviously the amount of catching up that we've got in terms of delivering new footpaths and bicycle paths and shared paths, and that's going to be an ongoing challenge. You know, that's something I suppose that we can sort of work towards and prioritise. That's obviously challenging just given all the other the budget constraints, but there are I suppose other avenues through like the State Bicycle Fund and different types of grants that could sort of help accelerate that, which we do try and make a conscious effort to apply for every year anyway. Public transport, so SMEC made, I guess, a very strong point around the existing on-demand services. We've only got 2 buses at the moment. You know, we're still managing, I guess, ongoing population growth now. So their sort of assessment has identified that there is a need for more buses, and we're already having those discussions with state government about that, and they're sort of cognizant of the existing challenges we have here. In addition as well, I suppose a lot of you might be also proxy to the work that the state government in conjunction with the federal government are doing around railway investigations to the north. So I guess providing key input and output through that is important as well. if I jump to the next slide, a lot of this is very sort of modelling heavy. If there's anything that we sort of got through the modelling that we did, is that without a northeastern connector, assuming the state government's projection around population growth in Concordia, there's going to be significant implications on Lindott Road, Murray Street, Carlton Road. So, you know, that it more or less highlights the importance and needs of a northeastern connector, and particularly getting freight out of the main street. It's obviously not something that would happen in the short term, but, you know, important discussions to address this in the long term is important. The other slide I wanted to bring up as well, just around that, was the local connections in through Gawler East, and I suppose that's, I think, a really important point to emphasise on as well, is that the transport strategy highlights that there are certain roads that might be impacted by growth in Concordia. So it's important that the transport strategy highlights these issues early on, so that we can plan and address that as it goes on. I suppose looking at it proactively. So that's the reason why we mentioned those streets around East Terrace, Cheek Avenue and Sunnydale Avenue, as given that those are both north-south connections between Lindott Road and Carlton Road. They're the ones that are likely to be impacted. And there were some numbers in the report that highlighted that as well. I can't remember the page number, but I can provide it at the end. The other challenges around the southern rural areas is, you obviously saw the land use map that Chris showed with the red representing residential growth. Probably some of the key things to take away from that is the importance of east-west connections. Otherwise, Dalkeith Road and Clark Road are quite heavily impacted. And the photo that I'm just showing on the right just sort of highlights some of the key challenges, particularly around the Bentley Road corridor, which shows a number of different constraints, one being the sea gas pipeline, another being SA Water, a narrow road reserve, and you know, a number of creek crossings through there. So that's not necessarily easy, and there are other alternatives that should be looked at through there. Around the town centre, if there's any takeaway from that, is that there probably needs to be a more detailed plan just around the actual town centre precinct and some of the local streets that surround it, as it's a very holistic solution. You probably saw in the modelling outputs there that they showed different options around closing Murray Street, and that's not to say that's something you'd do. It's more or less showing that's a different option, a shared path option. There's a number of different ways you could look at the main street, but they all have different impacts. And I suppose the photo I just wanted to show on the right is just the King Street Bridge as obviously being an important pedestrian connection through there as well. There's a lot of sensitivities and things to consider around that as well. So just to maybe sort of recap, I suppose we've prepared the Gawler Growth Framework final land use plan in conjunction with the transport strategy, which has fed a lot of those assumptions in there. We've gone through the engagement process for both of those. The land use plan has been summarised and put together in the report. We've only just recently closed the engagement for the transport strategy, so we're just going through those engagement submissions at the moment. As Chris sort of highlighted earlier, that would then feed into the Greater Adelaide Regional Plan for over the next 6 weeks, which I think we've got time to provide a submission in. And I suppose that can then sort of lead to sort of future structural planning around Cuddler and other sort of council and planning commission and Renewal SA.
Councillor Hughes. I'll just turn...
Yeah, thank you. Just a question to Richard. Regarding the North Eastern Connector, is there a strategy in place that Council's looking at to actually engage with state and developers and everything else to actually fast-track that connector? Because the modelling and our engineers have sort of indicated that it's just going to cause massive issues if we don't have that in place. And what can we as a council do in that regard?
Through the chair, yeah, that's an excellent question. So as of current, I know that there are some structural planning and considerations around Concordia at the moment. A lot of the modelling that we've done has actually provided input to the state government in terms of their thinking and consideration. So they've acknowledged and received the feedback that we've given in terms of the consequential outcomes of if a northeastern connector road isn't provided. So that's, I suppose, gives us a little bit of leverage in terms of advocating around, the need for it, particularly if you're dealing with a large-scale development with that number of people in Concordia. Does that sort of help answer the question?
Councillor Hughes?
Yeah, it does, but whether we as a council need to actually put a position as well. I mean, it's great and it sounds like we've got the data there, but what else that we as a council can be doing to... my concern is also hearing about infrastructure for developments like Oleana Water, where they're waiting and being told they've got to wait many years to get a title for land that they've already put a deposit on. That infrastructure is the basic water and sewage, but I think for some of these bigger developments, that road infrastructure is vital as well. But just so we can actually get some timeframes for those, because I think often the council gets blamed for not planning or being the cause of some of these issues when we're trying to help and just how we can help push this through and get these things in place. Otherwise, I think we're as a council area, our road traffic network is at certain times of the day already at peak, and if we get the extra 4,500 dwellings in Gawler without Concordia or anything else, our traffic networks are really going to be under a lot of stress. So it's just what we can do as a council.
Richard?
Through the chair, so there's probably not much I can't directly answer that question tonight, just as that's an ongoing discussion that we'll have to have with the state government around that level of planning. But I would anticipate that the Gawler Integrated Transport Strategy can be used as, I suppose, that trigger for discussion with them, particularly as the modelling outputs has drawn those conclusions. Without that modelling, there's a lesser of an argument to provide to them.
Yeah. Councillor Koch and then Councillor Hennessy.
Through the mayor. Richard, again, I mean, you talked about the connections from Concordia through Gawler East to Schomberg Drive, and you talked about Sunnydale Avenue, that we need to be proactive. Could you explain to me what does that actually mean on the ground?
Richard?
Through the chair. So as I sort of highlighted the other night, you saw, I guess, with that modelling output that the volume on Sunnydale could increase to 9,000. That's looking 20, 30 years down the line, so that's not going to happen overnight. I suppose the question then becomes is, in relation to Sunnydale Avenue, what do we want to see Sunnydale Avenue being in the long term? And it's important to address that issue now, then wait until you get to the detail, and then you have more and more traffic being built up onto that section of street. So I guess what I'm trying to say with that is you have to, I guess, if you want to preserve certain streets, we need to have a position on it. Some streets are going to be impacted if you're feeding growth through to Concordia. So how do we come up with a strategy that manages that? So if Sunnydale Avenue is of a bigger concern, then we can be proactive and think about those solutions early on.
Councillor Koch?
I actually wanted, because I'll have to go and talk to my constituents now on Sunnydale Avenue, and it's a very narrow street. There's a big hump in the middle of it. They're already concerned about vehicles. We put a load limit on the road, no turn, everything else.
Yeah.
What am I going to say to my constituents? You know.
You want to make a comment? There you go.
Through the chair. I mentioned probably previously, but it might have been in passing. But basically the work that's been done by the transport engineers for Concordia will be finished in about November, they say. Now, there's about 3 or 4 different things they're looking at, but one of them obviously is the Sturt Highway connection, and another one is the connections into the south through Gawler. So the agreement I had with Eleanor Walker and HIP2 was they would present to council in December. At the same time as they've got the findings from that work, plus the structure planning, and you'll see exactly how they intend to integrate the networks across the different local government areas. That probably is a question that's best to ask to Martin Goodchild, I think it is, and Eleanor, but they're certainly aware of it because we've been sharing our modelling since the beginning. In fact, I've been talking about this issue for the last 2 years. And because I've been given that feedback from council, and it's quite obvious on the ground that Sunnydale has very limited capacity, and I share your view. Cheek Avenue has a lot more capacity, but it probably would be overwhelmed if it was the only way in. But I think there's a need for more networking from the Concordia end to show how they will be able to coexist with us, rather than us coexist with them. So I think if we wait till December, we'll see Eleanor's briefing, and I think that's probably the best way to get the answer.
Councillor Hennessy.
Yeah, thank you, through you, Mayor. Thank you, Richard, for the overview and certainly the information you provided on Wednesday night. I certainly, Wednesday night, for me, certainly confirmed that without the bypass, Concordia can't even start. So, but there was some concern because I think I heard that the bypass would go to Lyndoch. Did I mishear that? Did anyone else hear it? Because that seemed to be, there's no point taking, no, okay, good. I did mishear it. Yeah, because if it misses Concordia, that's not going to sort it. Might be good for Lyndoch. The other problem that I have, though, and you've just mentioned that needs to be further development. Did the consultants realise that we've removed the road bridge to King Street? And that took quite some effort. And the thought of putting it back and then diverting Main Street traffic via King Street out onto the main North Road may be problematic.
Through the chair, okay. Well, I think there's probably 3 questions in there. So maybe just to answer the first question around Lyndoch, I guess what I was meant to say was Lyndoch Road or the Barossa Valley Way. So when I say connection between Sturt Highway and Lyndoch Road, I meant Barossa Valley Way. Yeah. In terms of the second question, I remember the third one. Can you just remind me of the second question again?
The second question, Helen.
Yes. To the third question.
Yeah, King Street Bridge. Yes, so when SMEC prepares the strategic model, it's a very high-level model, and it might have been a situation where when they run their strategic models, the links are already built in, and it's a state government-based model. That the suggestion that directing traffic through King Street is a good idea, I disagree. There's an existing pedestrian bridge, and it has a residential function. Through some of the submissions that we got through the recent engagement, there was a couple of other comments around I guess the use of King Street as a connection, and I agree with those statements as well. So that's certainly something. It's not going to be able to change in the figure, but we can certainly add some commentary into the final transport strategy that there's all sorts of heritage and connection issues that makes that not a viable option. So our consultants are aware that it is a pedestrian connection and that was removed as part of the Gawler electrification project because they needed to raise the height of the bridge to get the cabling through. So there's all sorts of challenges that are associated with that. Likewise with anything that you do around the main street in terms of planning. So we're very cognizant of that.
Thank you, Richard. Any other comments? Any other questions? Thank you, Richard and Chris, for your presentation. Thank you very, very much. Okay, now we've got an officer's recommendation. If we can move that up. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do you want to move it, Councillor Solomon?
I also sent around a few hours ago a point 7 in there as well, which Susie's putting up on the screen now. Hopefully everyone saw that. I apologise if you didn't.
I didn't see it.
Yeah.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, I apologise. Then it was a very lengthy report, and I wanted to make sure I got it right. And I'll give everyone a moment to read, but then I'm happy to speak to it.
Okay. Notes the future zoning and land use of Hillier is still contested within the community and between levels of government. Requests that a report be provided to council prior to the end of February 2025, including further discussions and analysis on the future of Hillier based on the principles of living locally, a green Agorla vision, degree of flood risk and objectives contained in the Gawler Community Plan 230.
Yep.
Yep. Okay.
Are you happy for me to speak to it? Yep.
Yep.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll come to the reason why I've moved the amendment in just a minute, but first I want to touch on this plan and the process that we've been through. Obviously, it's a fairly high-level plan, but it's good to see the level of engagement that we've gotten on something which is quite a complex and detailed document, or a set of documents, and to see some very detailed and some very thoughtful feedback coming from the public on this. Mind you, it's still a small portion of the town, but it's compared to what we get from a lot of other consultations. It's a really quite a significant number, and we can't underappreciate. We need to make sure that we appreciate the effort which was put in by staff during that process as well to get to that point. This, as I talked about earlier, is one of these things, these big things that we do and we absolutely need to have as a council. And I think Chris Hannaford said it before, that some councils are now scrambling to figure out what they're doing with the GARP, but we're not in that position at all. We're in a position where we've come up with a plan and we've gone out to our community, and then we have something to show for it. Yeah. I think this is the start of a great vision for our town. And to get a bit nerdy for a second, but recently been reading E.H. Coombs' history of Gawler and thinking a lot about how he starts that. And I'll come back to that in just a minute, but I've heard it said that Gawler is a conservative town. Yeah. And I think I would like to challenge that slightly. What he talks about is Gawler as a really progressive town, and I get that's 100 years ago, but also there's elements throughout that. There was a statement made as well around the same time that the people of Gawler are not conservative, but they're independent-minded. And I like that, and I think that's true, because what we are about is that we like to chart our own direction. We don't like to be pushed around and told what to do. I think that comes to this as well, which is that if anyone's seen the GARP, what's come out about our southern areas, the exact quote is that the Cuddler Growth Area provides an opportunity for a master planned extension to Manapara. That's the exact wording they've used. Now, we love our neighbours to the south, and of course we need to work with them in order to plan for our region, but we are not part of Playford. No. We have a unique identity and we have a history which is really important. But the thing about our history in Gawler, and the more I look back through, that history of Gawler, is that the people who have defined what Gawler is have done so, the people of Gawler have defined what Gawler is throughout the ages and had a vision for their town. And if we fail to do that, if the leaders in our town, not just in here but out there as well, fail to have a vision for our town, we will risk becoming part of the northern suburbs. So, look, to talk to the actual plan, I think this is a great plan, which we've taken to our community. We've had some changes in there as well with where we're putting infrastructure and things, but it talks about the kind of ambitions that we want for our town. It talks about getting transport around the town so people can move around. It talks about better health like people have put in feedback about better health services, about better access to education. It provides opportunities for employment in our town, meaningful employment, where people can actually start to live locally, because it recognises that special thing about our town where people like to work locally. They interact with each other and they need spaces to socialise and contribute to their community. And that's what makes the town of Gawler so great. So I think that our plan is an ambitious one. In contrast, we've got the GARP, which has come out, which wants urbanisation all the way up to the river, an extension of Manapara all the way up to the river, and it wants to put a piece of grass, which it calls a parkland, in between that roughly 12 kilometres of urban sprawl from the back of Andrew's farm, wants to put a piece of grass between that and Evanston. And that would be a really disappointing outcome, I think, for everyone in our community. We've worked really hard to make sure that we get the kind of development that we want, and we can plan for future growth. If we embrace that, and we embrace those values of living locally, of having as Gawler as a place to be and not just a place to sleep and then to leave in the morning, then we are well on our way to defining that, and I think that's an important part of pushing back on what's been proposed in the GARP. The reason for the amendment in there about Hillier is that I think that part is crucial, because they want, in the GARP, it's been clearly outlined that what they want is urbanisation to the river. We know from the consultation we've done, that's not what our community wants. No. I would also argue that there is very little to suggest that our community wants horticulture there either, but there is a lot of space to move in between those two things, and I think that we need to apply the principles which we work so hard to outline as a council to that area, in order to chart a way forward which can deliver on some of the growth aspirations of the state government, but also allows us to stand up and push back against what will be kilometres of urban sprawl from back at Andrew's farm. So, as part of this, I want to say that other than Hillier, the rest of this plan I think is exceptional and provides a good vision moving forward for our town. I think I've spoken way too long, but you get the gist.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I'm happy to second the motion. I also received some panicked responses from the community when the Advertiser published about the GARP and how all of Cudler, all of Evanston South and all of Hillier would become residential, and so would the area directly to our south in the Playford Council area. It would be one unbroken line of Manapara with a, yes, as Councillor Sullivan mentioned, an interurban break between Orleana Waters and Hillier or whatever, which is, fairly meaningless. And that's why I congratulate staff, I congratulate Andrew on his vision. If we had received this and not had anything planned and had until November to submit this, we would have no option but to become part of Manapara, I suspect, because we wouldn't have been able to get anything sorted out in time that wasn't just no, which would not be an answer that the Minister would accept. I think we have provided an alternative that the Minister hopefully will accept and the staff will look at, and that I think state government staff have contributed along this process, and we're fairly confident that we've got something that is, quite valuable, not just because staff have worked on this, but also because we have a huge amount of community consultation. Just this item alone, I believe, is 500 pages of our attachments. So anyone who still gets a paper agenda, I hope you go plant a tree tomorrow to make up for the tree that arrived at your door. I think this is a very, very well done project.
Okay. Councillor Hennessy.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, I very much agree with comments of both the previous speakers. I wanted to touch on one of my themes, which is community engagement, and I think we've done this particularly well, and I congratulate staff, not only say for the vision, but for genuinely taking and engaging. But mostly I wanted to thank the people who made submissions, and I encourage people to wade through those 500 pages, which I read online, thank you, because we've captured a variety of really thoughtful and meaningful feedback that, while there are different points of view, altogether they give us quite a good snapshot of how our community is feeling. So thank you. It's never easy to do submissions, but I think we've gained some particularly good ones in there, and I'd just like to thank people for that effort. I think it does set us up well now for negotiating with the state government, and having listened to the GARP presentation this afternoon, I'm feeling that we're in a really good space to be able to respond. As the Deputy Mayor says, 6 weeks is not a terribly long time. I think we're really on the front foot. So thank you to everyone involved.
Councillor Koch.
Thanks, Mayor. I've actually got a different view to what's been spoken to tonight. I just can't reconcile with what's happening when I look at the community plan, and it's 1.1, Gawler remains unique and distinct from its neighbouring areas, and also with our green belt policy, which is both of those are going to be potentially washed away tonight. I think what we actually have here really is urban sprawl. My concern is the 5,000 square metre allotments in that bottom area. That's just big urban blocks, basically. I live on 4,000 square metres, that's an acre, so this is a little bit more. And basically, once you put a house, a shed and a driveway on it, it's urban living. I mean, my view would be that it should be parklands or much bigger allotments. That's my biggest concern. So that's yep. So the next one for me is I think Gawler's already doing its fair share when it comes to providing housing for people in South Australia. The Gawler East and the Southern Gawler, that's 5,520 people. Evanston South, 2,040. Evanston Gardens, 4,040. So that's an extra 12,000. So we're actually looking at another 10,000 odd people. So that's 22,000 people. I cannot see how we can have a livable community with an extra 22,000 people without the infrastructure that goes with it. I'm very, very concerned about the community infrastructure, the social infrastructure. We've seen developments happening around us where there's been no infrastructure at all, no water, no sewerage, nothing. I'm very concerned about that. I'm very concerned about the people in Cuddler who now will, if this gets up, will be, if they like riding mini bikes or riding horses, well, potentially that's finished because it'll be urbanised, basically. So I'm very concerned there. And then with the surveys, it said 60% want a green belt. Well, if you don't agree with green belts, you don't like puppies, for example. But when people think of green belts, they don't think of it as residential, residential houses sort of in an area, because that's what you have got, residential. So I'm concerned. I have looked at the draft GARP, and it's interesting that I wouldn't class it as a bit of lawn between the two spots, but it's actually, it goes from the foothill through the Renew SA land and to the river. So I assume that it's probably fair to say that the government's considering purchasing land through there. I don't understand why we can't convince them to, purchase that land just to the north of Dalkeith Road, that we actually do have parklands through there, because that's how we're going to preserve our community and actually have a real inter-urban break. So that's sort of really, and I also get concerned, again, where this is probably leading is, I listened to the presentations today, this afternoon, and you're probably looking at 15 to 20 years plus before, the infrastructure comes into place. So people down in Cuddler will actually be in limbo or holding pat for the next 20 years, I suppose, because there's other places that will be come online before. That'd be Concordia, there'd be Two Wells, Riverlea, etc., etc. And the big one's probably going to be Dublin. They're looking at 400 hectares out there to do a whole lot of stuff. You know, potentially that's where they really should be putting a new waste treatment plant, because the Bolivar is actually at capacity, we know that. So really the infrastructure that needs to go in is going to be horrendous. And I hope it's not fast-tracked and we just think that it can all happen. And I suppose the other thing, when I look on page, I did read the 500 pages, when I look on page 287 of 500, we talk about the bushfire risk ratings now, and a lot of that southern area now is in probably a high level of risk awareness now. So you know, filling that up with houses with potentially bushfires. I mean, we did see a fire at Hillier Park that sort of burnt a fair bit. There's been a fire at Bibaringa a couple of years ago, and I do get concerned when Parra Woodlands, Springwood is, that development is right up to Parra Woodlands. So I do wonder whether developers actually consider bushfire now, especially now we've got those new overlays. And overall, I think it's a missed opportunity of actually being really creative and innovative in that area. We could have had we could have spaces down there where we were innovative and showcasing real sustainable living with different sizes of dwellings, etc. But instead, we're just rolling out more houses and houses, and it's the same old, same old. So I think it's a sad day for Gawler. I think we could have done a lot better, and I don't think it's going to create a livable Gawler. I think I'm not very confident at all about it, and I'll probably be in my 80s before anything happens. So there you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Question? Question? Question?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Councillor Koch has just intimated that the Green Belt policy will be done away with. Yet I read it's to be revised. Could we have perhaps some discussion from staff as to the extent of the revision, or will it in fact be completely done away with?
Through the chair, I did look at the policy and wondered whether you could do a track changes version on the run while we're doing all these other things at the same time. And I felt that it was probably better that we sit down and have a bit of a workshop and go through the wording of it, particularly given, as we probably alluded to tonight, some of the views of government in terms of GARP. We may not have a 100% locked in agreement with them as to what the government wants, but I think we've got some key principles in the work we've done through the growth framework, and we could revisit the wording. There are specific things in that policy which talk about green buffers that basically couldn't be achieved even at the time, because you already had industrial zones inside that buffer, for example, on Hales Road. So I got to the point that I just couldn't work out how to not fix it, but update it. And I just thought that's not fair to dump that on council, and with so many track changes you couldn't work out what the intention was. So I thought we should do it properly.
Yes.
Thank you. That eases my concerns, because I still feel the sentiment of that policy still applies. I think a workshop would be an elegant solution to trying to come up with a better document. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Andrew. Any other discussion? Councillor Shanks.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Look, I actually agree with some of Councillor Koch's points around more of the same. That is a sentiment that we do see in Australia a fair bit. You know, the 300 square metre houses, the gutter-to-gutter developments. There is an opinion that I have as a personal opinion, and there are a lot of different residential developments that I've been lucky enough to see overseas and the like. Now, that opinion, though, as much as I'm passionate about making sure that we do move with the times and the like, I do know that sought-after dream, that model and the like is actually a good seller here in Australia as well. I'm saddened that we don't think outside the box. I'm saddened that we do put up a whole bunch of barriers of why you can't do something. And I think there has been a lot of that going on, and why we do see more of the same throughout the country, realistically. That said, when I look at the GARP and I look at what we're talking about in Gawler, and I'm going, well, we're getting to the point now where we've pretty much got two choices, because when we had the chance to be able to talk about what could be possible, that innovation, that different living style, we didn't get down to the what could be done conversations. We talked about the potential of a green belt, which stopped subdivision, or talked about what we didn't want to see, but then we didn't impose zoning that actually promoted what we did want to see in a development and viable way. The green belt, I believe, I completely agree in the Dalkeith Road as that buffer between us and Playford. The GARP talks about a buffer pretty much just taking that undeveloped part of Gawler and just merging it in with Playford, and no one will know. We are all good. You know, it's a really sad day when that's the conversation we're talking about, and how far we are on different ends of the spectrum when we talk about Hillier, for example, as we go down to the river corridor. Now, I've got, again, personal views, activation, sustainable growth, all those things that I think we need to be focusing on and the like. And if I want to get down to the micro level, for me, I'd like to see Main North Road actually better utilised for employment zone, not just more houses next to a highway.
That's right.
You know, I'd like to see a bit more modelling around, if we are going to make these splinter suburbs, which that's in lack of a better term, how are we going to promote that cohesive community that we all preach, we all know we want? But what we're talking about is actually providing these little suburbs that have their own shops, have their own bakeries, have their own, and realistically, they can self-contain in there, and then they can get on Anglevale Road and come out. So how do we promote that cross-pollination, I guess, of activation across the 42 square kilometres that is now Gawler? How do we model that? So, yeah, I don't disagree. I think it is a bit more of the same. But that said, I think we are working within the best parameters that we have to a degree, and what the current state of play is. That development happening to us is, I don't think, the place we need to be. And I think this is a good foundation piece working within, putting aside my personal opinions for a second, but for direction of the town. I think this is a good foundation piece to be able to have those discussions, those negotiations. We are picking up the Southern Sporting Precinct. We are talking about employment zones.
Yeah.
The actual locality of them, I checked with Andrew today, the conversation that we can have as a group, we still have the chance to have them, because this is more of a high level. And some of those infrastructure needs, like Anglevale Road, Jack Cooper Drive, all those connector roads that get us out to the highway and get us into public transport, are they going to deal with this sort of dense living? Those questions that we're working through these plans. But yeah, so look, in summary, I agree, Councillor Koch, with a couple of your points there, but I don't agree with not supporting this direction to be ready for the negotiation piece that we need, because I certainly don't agree with what's on the GARP. And we need to be able to have that conversation, and this is the best piece, and I thank staff for it. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Any other discussion? Councillor Solomon, do you want to wrap up the debate?
Thank you, Mayor. And I'll just touch on some of the stuff that was raised in there as well. It says in the report here that it's, of course, a living document, which I think is really important, and Andrew suggested that we review it every 4 years, so I think that's an important thing to note as well. However, it does give some security, I think, and some forethought in an area which I think has been lacking, which is how we actually manage that growth and grow appropriately for the future. Once again, I think it starts to come into that vision of what we want to be as Gawler, as the locality that is Gawler over the next 20, 30 years. This sort of vision of a peri-urban town with this rich history, but this bold future, and that we are forward-thinking, and that we can grow with the times, but we're growing in a way where we're not sacrificing the kind of things that make us a beautiful town and a beautiful place to live. We're not sacrificing that sense of community that you get out here. We're not sacrificing, you know, the amenities that people come to Gawler because of. And I think that's what's great about this process, is that we've had brilliant visions from everyone. We've had from the business community, from young people. If you saw the YAC submission in there as well, about transport-oriented development and what that means to them, about the ability to get around the town and not just, you know, to get from point A to B, but to give that equity, no matter age or ability, to people to engage with their community. That's powerful. That's the kind of thing that we get from the integrated transport study. And sometimes it looks, you know, we think it's boring on paper, but that's what it means in people's everyday life, is the ability to engage in their community. We've talked, but we've got security, and this is something which I know is a point of contention for many of us, but we've talked about the issues in the southern rural areas for many, many years, and something that I said in the second meeting, my second meeting here in the second meeting of this term, was that I wanted to get an answer on what we wanted for those southern rural areas in this term of council. Now, in my view, we have got an answer and we've at least got a pathway. We're not saying you're going to be able, you know, for people who want to develop, you're going to be able to develop tomorrow, but we have articulated clearly what we want for the town as a whole. On a very high level, I'll admit, but we've stopped doing that thing where we go, this is what we don't want, this is what we don't want. And we've gone, this is how we grow, this is what we want. And look, I understand the southern rural areas, the Cuddler area with the tree canopy overlay. It's not what everyone wants. If we really want to be separate, I mean, we could say, you know, we'll build a wall and make Playford pay for it, right? But that's not going to happen. If I could decide what I actually wanted to happen with that area, there would be a parkland across the face of the river down to Hillier Road, and then there would be a parkland across the bottom of Cuddler as well. But that's not realistic. That would cost billions of dollars. As much as we might want those things, we have to deal with what we have before us at the moment, which is this. And I think that based on what we have, what the opportunities we have before us at the moment, this has been a really good job. I didn't read it before. I forgot to, but I'll read it now. So at the beginning of Coombs' History of Gawler, he says, Gawler stands today one of the most picturesque and progressive country centres in the Commonwealth. Succeeding chapters will give some particulars of the transformation which has taken place. The purpose of this one is to set upon the canvas, as it were, a picture of the neighbourhood as it is. Such a reproduction should convey to those beyond the power of personal knowledge, Gawler, an impression, though imperfect, important, though imperfect, of its physical features and of its life. It should afford the resident of the colonial Athens, as he called it, 100 years, which is now, or maybe 500 years hence, who wishes to engage in retrospective imaginings concerning his local habitation and some fabric on the fact upon which to build the creations of his fancy. And when I read through that and I look and reflect on the things that make our town great and the people who have an influence in that, whether it's in this chamber or out there, leaders of industry in the business community, the people, the volunteers, those people that have made our town great, they, to me, have all held a vision of Gawler as something unique and something that, as a vision that they can be passionate about and one which is ambitious, and that's when Gawler has thrived. And I think that if we want a chance of pushing back against this disaster, this absolute joke of a plan, really, I doubt the minister's listening, but if he is, it's a joke of a plan to make us part of the urban sprawl in a suburb of Playford, then I think that we need to show that leadership and articulate a vision for our town based on this stuff that we have gotten from our community. And with that, I'm happy for the motion to be put. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. The debate is now closed. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? All those against? It is carried. Thank you. Now, Now we go to 10.6. Go to 10.6. 10.6. 10.6. Oh, monthly finance report. Okay. Where is it? 63. Oh, here we go. 10.4. Monthly finance report. Who wants to move the motion? Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Councillor Hughes has moved the motion. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Vallelonga, thank you. All those in... Any discussion? Any discussion? No? I'll put that motion. All those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you. 10.6, 75. 75. 75. Local Government Finance Authority Board of Trustees representative member elections. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got 5 people. Yes.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a question. The next 2 items, I'm just wondering, is there any basis for them to be in confidential reports, or does it need to be public? I just wondering, sort of ballot-wise.
I think we do an election. We do an election, and we do an election. So we do an election. Yeah, a ballot election. Yeah, we need to do. We need to write down. Yeah, we need to do that. Yeah, we do. 2 minutes. And the other one is Local Government Association LGA President election. No, we do them separately. We do them separately. Yeah, we'll fill the ballot paper out. Yeah, we'll fill the ballot paper out. So we're going to have a break now to 9:30. So yeah, and you'll So we just pick two. Pick two names. We pick two names. Pickett, one. Grant Pickett, two. There we go. There we go. There we go. There we go. Two names. Two names. Yep. And all right. Okay. So you go out. You go outside. Okay, so we've got Grant Pickett and Michael Sedgman, 6 and 7. Okay, so that's so council selects Grant Pickett and Michael Sedgman as the two candidates to vote for election to the Local Government Finance Authority Board of Trustees for a 2-year term commencing on 1st of January 2025. Grant Pickett and Michael Sedgman. Yeah, so do you want to move that way, Councillor Hughes? Oh, nice. Fantastic. Grant Pickett and Michael Sedgman. So we've got a mover. Do I have a seconder? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Samble. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Hughes and seconded by Councillor Samble. Thank you. Thank you. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. So now we do this one. Now we do this one. One cross. Just one cross. Yeah. Here we go. Here we go. So, Lord Mayor Jane Lomax-Smith got 6 votes. So, yeah. So council selects Lord Mayor Jane Lomax-Smith, 6 votes. Do we have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Vallelonga and Councillor Hughes. Yeah, thank you. Councillor Vallelonga and Councillor Hughes, so I saw them first. So, moved by Councillor Vallelonga and seconded by Councillor Hughes. All those in favour? Yeah, do you want to add something?
Just quickly, I thought it's nice little anecdote, but I think that Dr. Jane Lomax-Smith will be a fantastic candidate. She certainly knows local government, and when I hear her talk about the issues, she obviously knows. I think she represents well some of the concerns we raised here. Though I believe she was in Gawler for a meeting, perhaps with you the other day, Mayor, and bumped into her in everyone's favourite, the Hot Bread Bakery down here. Bumped into her while she was getting a sausage roll. And
That's right.
I was stunned. I thought, okay.
She came and saw me.
Yeah,
she came and saw me.
Had a brief chat. It just happened to go for lunch early.
Museum. She went down to the museum and she got in.
Yeah.
She got in.
Yeah. Just by chance I went for lunch early and had I think a really good conversation about some of the issues that we've been talking about here, and so I have a lot of confidence in that and happy to support it.
I think she'd be a fabulous president. Yeah. So, okay. So we've got a mover and a seconder, and I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Information reports nil. Recommendations from committees. So we've got Elliot Goodger Memorial Park Master Plan. Who wants to move that? Who wants to move that? Do you want to move that, Nathan Shanks? And seconded by Councillor Vallelonga. Do we want to discuss it or not? Oh, okay, I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Policy review, public art policy. I went up to the Guja Street and went up and the Stobie pole art. It's looking really, really good. Yeah. Do you want to move that? You want to move that? Councillor Hennessy, seconded by Councillor Vallelonga. Okay. Do you want to speak? Do you want to speak to it, Helen? Do you want to speak to it, Helen? Okay, I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Community grants policy. The Corporate and Community Services recommends to Council that it adopts the community grants policy as presented. Do you want to move that way, Councillor Hennessy? Do you want to move that way? Seconded, Councillor Vallelonga. Thank you. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Recommendations from the Gawler Youth Advisory Committee. Yep. That the Gawler Youth Advisory Committee recommends to Council that the Youth Development Officer Update Report be noted. Moved by Councillor Vallelonga, seconded by Councillor Hughes. Thank you. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Recommendations from the Gawler Youth Advisory Committee meeting held on 5th of August. That Council adopts the recommendation from the Gawler Youth Advisory Committee made at item 7.1 at the meeting held on 5th of August 2024, being swimming, soccer, rugby, basketball. Do you want to move that way, Councillor Solomon? Do you want to second that, Councillor Vallelonga? Thank you. Thank you. All right. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Gawler Youth Development Officer Update Report. that the Youth Development Officer update report be noted. Moved by Councillor Vallelonga, seconded by Councillor Hughes. Thank you. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. External bodies reports, Ageing Well Advisory Group. That's, I'm the chair of that group, and we meet every couple of months. Gawler River Floodplain Management Authority Board, Reconciliation Action Plan Working Group. Moved by Councillor Vallelonga, seconded by Councillor Koch. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Questions on notice? None. Questions without notice? Ah, yes. Deputy Mayor.
So this is, there were, in the process of the boundary feedback process, there was some comments made around Gawler that, not about the boundaries, but just about the main street, that basically someone said, you know, why would I go to Gawler? The main street is dead, there's lots of empty shops. And there is not, but there is a long chain of empty shops, which damaged, to put it bluntly, damaged the reputation of our main street. Is there any update on the years of inactivity on that part of the street?
Down the southern areas.
Through the chair, my briefing from David Bilitovich was that the further information we'd requested from the applicant has been now provided. So I believe the team are assessing the application, and hopefully there'll be the processing of that and ultimately going to CAP, I imagine, at some point in the near future.
Thank you. Does that address your question? Thank you. Any other questions? No? Yes? Yes?
Is that proposal available for the public to see? And if so, how would a member of the public see it?
How will we see it?
Through the chair, it's live on the portal, I think, so it's accessible in that form, I believe.
On the portal.
I'll double check that to just confirm it's 100% right, but that's my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
I can send the link.
Thank you. Motions on notice, nil. Motions without notice. Council member attendances. We went to the ASO, didn't we? An hour and a half. It was really good. It was really, really good. And there was lots of community people there. Yeah, so it was packed out. It was fantastic, wasn't it? Yeah. Did you enjoy it? Yeah. Okay. So you went to the grand final. Do you want to make mention of Williston beating Anguston?
Yes. Yes, I went to the Barossa Light and Gawler football and netball finals, where I met the umpire of the under-13s football, who's sitting next to me, and the husband of the Division 3 netball grand final winner, who's sitting across from me. And so, yes, it was a clean sweep for Gawler. The reserves and A grade were won by Williston. The under-13s, under-15s and under-17s for the football were, between them, either won by South Gawler or Gawler Central. I believe the Div 1 netball was won by Gawler Central, and the Divs 2, 3, 5, 6 and 7 or something along those lines was won by South Gawler. So it was a very strong showing from the Gawler parts of the...
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
And I guess I'll just continue my update since I started it, but I did go to the ASO which was my first time going to Trinity's new theatre, which was it's really quite well made. They've, I'd been in there to have a look before, but I'd never been at an event, and they were able to reconfigure the stage to make it really good for music quality for a performance like that.
It was just fantastic.
So yeah, and the only other thing that I'll mention is that in my role as the representative on the Gawler Community House Board, we did have a meeting where they decided to support the mural group who needed someone for needed a group for the purposes of finance and that sort of thing, since they're not an official organisation, and the community house is going to provide support for that, for example, if they apply for one of our community grants. So I think that was a good outcome for the community.
That's fantastic, thank you. Council member attendance, any other activities that people want to... Oh, Brian?
Thanks, Mayor Karen. Yes, I've just had a lovely break up to Darwin. There wasn't a day under 33 degrees, so it was quite different coming back on Saturday back here. But prior to that, I was sort of answering a lot of calls. There's been a lot of people ringing and being quite abusive, which
really?
mainly because of some of the things that aren't or don't seem to be happening. You know, no updates on Pioneer Parker Wall, and I went up with a small group that wanted to tell me how to fix it and sort of thing, but I said, well, they've just got to get in touch with the department of Wendy and that. The other thing is I went up to a special Speedway event up in Darwin, and we're very happy to say that a lad called Matt Eagle from down here at Manapara, he won the event, and so brought home the huge trophy from up that way and so forth. So, and there was a lot from South Australia there. A lot of people from Gawler are up there now working. Grant Hatcher, John Palamountain, who's quite a well-known person, and it was great. But one of the things I did up there, because I have mixed feelings.
Hang on. Look at that. Look at that.
But I had the opportunity to go out fishing, and instead of you telling it was that big, I thought I'd just knocked off a few photos here to tell you. And I can tell you, Barramundi is fantastic. There's no doubt about it. But I also spent a lot of time because the person that I got to know up there from many years ago is a true-blooded Aboriginal person in Darwin, and I spent a lot of time with her going around to different places, as well as Kakadu. She's one of the head rangers out there. And the thing that really inspired me was the relationship between people in Darwin and Aboriginal people. It's something that I haven't experienced before, and yet I've had lots to do with Aboriginal people in my growing up days, and that an Aboriginal person taught me to play guitar, and I sang for many years on a national country music show and things like that, so I'm proud of that because of that. I've not been happy for a number of years with some of the things that are happening in South Australia, but that's my own personal opinion, and that. But it was just fantastic mixing with the people, going on the various tours that I had my shorts on there, but that's a nude swimming pool, and if ever you go up there, go to Berry Springs. It's great up there. You'll be right, Andrew.
Is there crocodiles in that river?
No, I made sure of that, yeah. But the other thing too is because our finance manager, Sharon, is so much into softball, and we've had softball discussions tonight. The weekend just passed had the National Softball Championships up there, and I just could not believe the way they catered for it. The whole city and Palmerston and everywhere got together and promoted it, and so the unity of the people working together up there is just quite amazing. And for those of you that have been or whatever, would probably agree with that. The weather I couldn't put up with too much, I can tell you about that, but that was very hot, so there was plenty of beer there to drink, so it was all right. But in general, it was great. I met a councillor and had a good chat to him, how things were going up there. And since the change of the government, there's a new lady has taken over now, and I think things are certainly going to change direction. There's no doubt about that. And again, the biggest thing that hurt, so the councillors and tour operators told me, was the voice. And the voice was just the worst thing that they felt. And it was interesting talking to them and well, why, you know, sort of thing. But when you've got 75% of Aboriginal people, as Paul and a few others that have worked with that, living in that area, it was a real experience, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. The fish were lovely, there's no doubt about that. And
Fantastic.
I hope everybody gets the opportunity to go up there and see what Darwin's all about sometime.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Brian. Isaac?
I'll just go very quickly. Reed Reserve Playground opening the other day. I think Brian said the Department of Wendy, but that whole team, I forget the name of the particular staff who were leading that, but was it, sorry? Leanna, but great project there, a great local playground. So congratulations to them, and also attended the Hope Cup fundraiser at the Exchange, which most people around this table would know, but of course the Hope Cup is played each year, raising money for a lot of the work that the Salvos do around homelessness and people doing it tough, and you can still donate to that online. And that was of course a great event where we had all three representatives from all three levels of government speaking, including our Mayor, Redmond.
Yeah.
So, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was a pretty good night. Yeah, Nathan, you interviewed Matt. Did you interview Matt Burnell? Yeah, you interviewed Matt Burnell. So, yeah, it was really good, really good. You MC'd, so yeah, it was really good. Talitha Holm interviewed me, so yeah, that was, and I met with her the day before, so yeah, that was pretty good. So, yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a very, very good night. Very, very good night. So, well, it should be. It should be an annual event. Yeah. So, okay. That's council member attendances and activities. Anybody else want to share? Anything? No? Okay. So, we'll move on to confidential reports. Electricity procurement update. Is that you, Tim? Oh, that's confidential reports, electricity procurement update. So we need to go into confidence. Chief Executive Officer, Executive Manager, Community and Safety Strategy, Executive Manager, Development and Compliance, yes. Finance and Corporate Governance, Infrastructure and Operations, and Minute Taker. Where? It's highlighted in yellow at the bottom of page 2. Oh, Environment and Sustainability Officer. Is that you, Tim? That's it. Oh, awesome. Okay. Who would like to move that motion? Can you explain that motion?
Yeah. No, happy to move that we go into confidence because we're dealing with commercial information of a confidential nature which could reasonably be expected to prejudice the commercial position of the person who supplied the information and would on balance be contrary to the public interest, and also because it contains legal advice.
Thank you. And you're seconding it? Thank you. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. So we're now in confidence? Yeah, we're in the stream.